One of Italy's biggest superpowers isn't just food and fashion. It is how a country that looks so small on a map can suddenly feel so gigantic when you start traveling around. Fabulous people, welcome to the podcast for all the babes who create their own life trends. My name is Anastasia, and this podcast is all about inspiring you to relentlessly pursue your biggest dreams and live your most authentic, abundant life. So, on the map, Italy looks so tiny, but how long does it really take to get from the Amalfi Coast to, let's say, Puglia? Or can you do a day trip from Milan to Switzerland? Today, let's talk about vacation expectations versus the reality of traveling in Italy. This year we are organizing a beautiful, stunning trip for two couples to the Amalfi Coast in September. And one of them is actually a returning client of my travel agency, so I already knew her pretty well. And when we just started planning their trip, she reached out to me all excited, saying, Anastasia, for one of the nights, can you guys please book us into that stunning restaurant in the cliff? My friend just got back from Italy and she said it's an absolute must. So one of the nights, no matter the night, just please book us into that restaurant. And of course, I knew exactly what restaurant she's talking about. But what I was actually puzzled about is that what this restaurant in Puglia has to do with the Amalfi Coast. Just to double check that I am talking about the same place, I actually sent her the name of the restaurant and she said, yes, exactly, that is the one, Anastasia. Any night, I'm so excited to go there. So I said, okay, we can do it, but you have to understand that this restaurant is actually in Puglia and you will be staying in Positano in Amalfi Coast. And she said, okay, that's no problem. How long will it take for me to get there? I said, okay, so if you want for us to organize a private transportation for you from Positano to Polignano a Mare in Puglia, it will take about 5 hours just one way to go there. If you want to take a train to go there, then we first need to organize a private transportation to take you from Positano, because Positano does not have a train station, from Positano to Naples, and then we will organize train tickets for you from Naples to Polignano a Mare, where this restaurant is located, but also please keep in mind that it will require multiple changes, and all in all, it will take you about 6 hours one way. Of course, I said there is always a helicopter option, and then at this point, we were just laughing with her. And of course, I said, listen, don't worry. There are so many stunning, incredible restaurants in Amalfi Coast. We will get you into the most stunning local places with the most jaw-dropping views. Do not worry. And then on top of that, to make it even more special for them, for one of the nights, we actually organized a private chef to come to their home. And I know this chef personally because he actually cooked for my 30th birthday long time ago, and he is one of the best on the Amalfi Coast. And of course, he's going to make the most incredible dinner in their home in Positano. Everything from courgette flowers stuffed with ricotta to lemon pasta to strawberry tiramisu. And all this produce comes directly from his garden, guys. And on top of that, he's going to pair everything with wines from his vineyard. I mean, needless to say, at the end of the day, the client was very, very happy to skip that restaurant in Puglia. Now, here is something that no one tells you about when you just start planning your first trip to Italy. One of Italy's biggest superpowers isn't just food and fashion. It is how a country that looks so small on a map can suddenly feel so gigantic when you start traveling around. I mean, seriously, guys, if you look on the map, Positano and Polignano a Mare almost look like next door neighbors. But here's the reality check. Italy's geography is like an Olympic obstacle course designed to keep travelers humble. You have winding mountain roads that make you feel like you're inside a car commercial. You have scenic train routes that sometimes require 3 connections and a mandatory espresso break at every single train station, and the kind of detours that even the best GPS apps sometimes cannot predict. What looks like a quick and easy day trip on a map can sometimes turn into 8 hours in transit. 2 trains, 1 bus, a taxi, and at least 1 moment of existential crisis in the middle of a rural train station where you're just surrounded by olive trees. On the map, distances seem just this far. It's just this tiny little line. But in reality, this tiny little line is half of your vacation. By the time you arrive at your destination, even your suitcase will be speaking perfect Italian from all the adventures. So next time you're tempted to squeeze just one more region into your itinerary, please remember that in Italy, a journey is part of the adventure, and sometimes it's the main event, unless, of course, you plan and organize your journey wisely. Now, it is also not unusual for our clients to dream big when they are visiting northern Italy, and sometimes those dreams include a quick day trip from Milan to Switzerland. Just recently, we had such a lovely Canadian family who reached out to us saying, Anastasia, can you guys please organize a trip from Milan to Zurich for us for a day, and then we want to be back to Milan by the dinner time. And of course, they were very, very excited about this idea until I explained to them what in reality it actually means. Because again, Milan and Zurich look very close on the map, but in reality, it would take them 3.5 to 4 hours to get from Milan to Zurich. And then, of course, back. So when you calculate all this time just traveling around, unless you have a private jet or you really love train snacks, it's just not a good idea for a day trip. Of course, one option that sometimes our clients consider is the famous Bernina Express that takes you through the Swiss Alps into the resort town of St. Moritz. And of course, if you've never done it before, I strongly recommend you to do it, or at least to put it on your bucket list, because it is so worth it. This train journey is considered one of the most picturesque in the entire world, guys. And with those huge panoramic windows and jaw-dropping views, I promise to you, you will definitely not regret it. But here is the thing: to organize this train ride from Italy, it will require some work and preparation, and also a good planning on your part or on the part of your travel agency who is organizing this trip for you. Because if you plan on doing it from Milan, you first need to get from Milan to Tirano, which takes approximately 2.5 hours. And then from Tirano, you will take, of course, the Bernina Express, which is about 4 hours. Of course, the most stunning views, like I mentioned, but that's a lot of hours traveling one way. That's why I always recommend to all of our clients to stay in Alps overnight. This way you can just relax, enjoy, soak in the atmosphere of the train ride, and then enjoy beautiful dinner in Alps, stay there overnight, and then make your way back to Milan, for example. But doing it in one day is just not worth it, guys. It's not. You will be exhausted by the end of the day, and then you will be tired the next day, and you just won't enjoy all the other things that you plan on visiting for the next day in Italy, for example. So just plan wisely, plan accordingly, make sure that you're giving yourself plenty of time. Now, these stories tie into one common mistake that I see people make all the time as the owner of a travel agency in Italy. People underestimate the size and the pace of traveling in Italy and its neighbors. On the map, everything looks so close together, but in reality, things unfortunately are a little bit different. We often get requests from travelers for day trips that seem quite easy to do, but in reality mean spending most of their time just getting to that destination. For example, travelers ask us to organize a day trip from Florence to Venice, or from Rome to Capri for lunch and then back the same day. And of course, this all sounds incredible until you start getting into the logistics and realizing that those trips oftentimes means spending 3, 4, at times 5 hours in transit just one way, just getting there. And then you have to take into account that you will have to spend exactly the same amount of time back, or even longer if your train gets delayed. So that means that you will spend very little time actually enjoying the destination. So all of this you absolutely have to take into account, especially if you're planning a trip to Italy by yourself. And of course, guys, I cannot let you go because first of all, I really enjoy this conversation. And second, because you already know I'm going to give you some very important practical tips when it comes to traveling in Italy and how to make the most out of it. Number 1, check real travel times and not just distances. As we've learned in this episode, Italy looks very compact, but the reality is quite different when you start taking into account train schedules, traffic, delays, mountain roads. So when you start planning your trip to Italy and all those day trips in between, just make sure to always use Google Maps to calculate your exact travel time and not just time between two destinations, because in Italy, those two are quite different things. The second tip that I have for you is something that I talk about a lot on my YouTube channel and of course on this podcast, and that is sometimes less is more. Just give yourself time to enjoy each destination to the fullest. I know you're already in Italy and it is so tempting to see as many places as possible. But trust me, after organizing thousands of trips for clients from around the world, I can assure you that the best way to enjoy Italy is to spend more time in each place, just wandering around, relaxing, exploring all the sites and places at your pace instead of just racing from one city to another just to cross out more places out of your bucket list. Guys, I promise to you, your trip will be so much more enjoyable if you dedicate more time to each destination. Number 3, ask a local or work with a local travel agency in Italy. If you're planning a trip to Italy by yourself, I strongly recommend for you to reach out, for example, to your Airbnb host and just ask them a recommendation or ask their opinion. I'm sure if it's a good host, they will not mind it at all. Or if you don't want to spend hours, days, weeks, months planning, organizing, researching, booking everything, then I strongly recommend for you to work with a travel agency in Italy, a local travel agency like My Fabulous Vita travel agency, for example, because a local travel agency that is actually located in Italy truly understands all the nuances and details when it comes to organizing your trips between the cities and also the best day trips that you can take from each location. And of course, when in doubt, stay overnight. If you're set on visiting somewhere that's a little bit further away, then turn it into a mini adventure and stay overnight. Not only you will avoid the stress of rushed trip, but you will also experience that destination in a more authentic way. Especially when all the day trippers leave, you will have the place to yourself, and trust me, it will be the most magical experience. And that is something that I talked about recently in my video about Venice, because I absolutely love that city. It is one of my favorites in Italy, and I always strongly encourage everyone to visit that city, not just for a day, but to actually stay there overnight. It is so worth it, guys, especially when all the day trippers leave. Trust me, that city is just magical. It is something for you to truly experience at least once, guys. So promise to me, if you plan on including Venice into your itinerary in Italy, which I strongly recommend, promise to me, guys, that you will spend the night in Venice. You will not regret it. So guys, the biggest takeaway from today's episode is that a proper planning in Italy goes a long way. And the reward is a trip that feels seamless, effortless, immersive, and full of magical moments that you carry with yourself long after the trip is over. And I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in into today's episode. I enjoyed our conversation so much, and I truly hope that you found all this information we discussed today useful and beneficial for your future travels to Italy. And of course, if you want more of Stay Fabulous series, then please remember to smack that subscribe button. And if you're listening to this episode on iTunes or Spotify, please leave me a review with your biggest takeaway from today's episode. I absolutely love reading your comments. And of course, what can I say? I will talk to you all in my next episode. Until then, and always, stay fabulous.